She doesn't want love. She wants control. And the moment you stop reacting, her world collapses. You've been lied to. She pretended to be the one, only to strip your confidence, question your worth, and feed off your reactions. It was never about love. It was about control. She smiles when you're confused. She laughs when you're angry. She wins when you're weak, but not anymore. You're about to learn how to starve her of the only thing that keeps her alive, your attention. Comment below, I choose myself, if you're ready to break the chains. Number 1. Stop explaining yourself. She doesn't want clarity. She doesn't care what the truth is. Her goal is not understanding. Her goal is dominance. And the more you try to explain yourself, the deeper you sink into her trap. The moment you start defending your intentions, your actions, or your innocence, you hand her the power to twist your words, to manipulate the narrative, and to drag you into endless cycles of self-doubt. You become the defendant in a courtroom where she's the judge, jury, and executioner. And no matter how well you argue, she will always rule against you. She will shift the goalposts. She will twist facts. She will bring up unrelated issues just to overwhelm and destabilize you. She'll cry when it suits her, mock you when you're vulnerable, and act confused when you bring up her manipulations. That's her weapon, disorienting you through emotional chaos. So what do? You starve her, not of food, not of money, but of the thing she needs most, your emotional labor. You stop justifying your decisions. You stop clarifying your motives. You stop trying to get her to see your side. You adopt the mindset of a Stoic. You embrace indifference, not because you don't care about truth, but because you value your peace more than her approval. You learn the art of the powerful pause. When she falsely accuses you of cheating, don't explain how loyal you've been. Just say, believe what you want, and walk away. When she says you never cared, don't list all the things you did for her. Just nod and return to your book, your workout, your mission. That silence, that restraint, that's your weapon. That's how you torture her. You remove yourself from the courtroom. You stop attending her trials. You stop playing her games. She wants drama. You give her calm. She wants a reaction. You give her stillness. She wants control. You give her nothing, and in that nothingness, she drowns. She panics, because her identity was built around pulling your strings, watching you squirm, and feeding on your energy. Take that away, and she crumbles. You become a wall. You become unreadable. You become unreachable. That's when the tables turn. You reclaim your energy, your dignity, and your sanity. Stop explaining. Start observing. When she tries to bait you with lies, observe her. When she throws accusations like knives, watch how her eyes scan your face for a reaction. Don't give her one. And when you do speak, speak like a man who is anchored in truth, not swayed by opinion. Say less, mean more. Your new language is silence. Your new armor is emotional control. And your new victory is peace. Because the most brutal way to torture a narcissistic woman is to deny her the attention she's addicted to. You are no longer her performer. You are no longer her puppet. You are the mirror she can no longer manipulate, and that reflection terrifies her, because for once, it shows her who she really is, powerless without your energy. Number 2. Become unavailable. Her power was always in your access. You were her 24/7 emotional outlet, her therapist, her ego boost, her punching bag. You were always there, ready to fix her problems, validate her ego, respond to her drama. But that stops now, because the moment you become unavailable, you become untouchable. And that's when the torture begins. She can't stand not being able to reach you. She can't handle the silence. It eats at her. Every hour she doesn't hear from you, her mind races. Every text you ignore, her confidence cracks. Every missed call, every delay in your response, every excuse you don't give. These are daggers to her control. She will start showing up uninvited. She will start posting things online to provoke you. She will try to manipulate mutual friends to check on you. All of this is bait. Do not bite. Unavailability is not about being rude. It's about reclaiming your time, your peace, and your mission. You don't need to announce it. You just disappear from her schedule. You become a ghost in her world while becoming a legend in your own. You focus on building yourself. You become hard to reach, hard to shake, and impossible to predict. She used to know exactly how to get to you. Now, she can't even find the path. That drives her insane, because narcissistic women don't just want control, they need it. They feed on predictability. Your absence creates chaos in their mind. Your silence becomes the loudest scream. You don't reply to her accusations. You don't clarify your schedule. You don't justify your goals. You just vanish from her emotional economy. You're no longer a resource. You're a mystery. Start turning your phone off for hours. Start skipping events you know she'll be at. Start living your life like she doesn't exist. And when she sends that long text filled with blame, accusations, and fake concern, read it. Don't reply. That kills her more than any insult. It shows her she no longer has a grip on your emotions. She might say you're being cruel. She might say you're selfish. But deep down, she knows what this is. Punishment for years of manipulation. And the more unavailable you become, the more obsessed she becomes. She will stalk your socials. She will dig for information. She will create fake accounts. Let her. That desperation is proof you've won. Because in her world, being ignored is worse than being hated. It means she's irrelevant. And that's the one thing she can't survive. So make your unavailability permanent. Make your life so full of purpose that there's no room for her chaos. That's how you reclaim your identity. That's how you protect your future. That's how you torture the narcissistic woman who once fed off your every word, not with revenge, not with arguments, but with your absence. Your evolution is the punishment. Your silence is the revolution. And your new life, without her, is the ultimate win. Number 3, detach with dignity. She doesn't need a reason to betray you, disrespect you, or manipulate you. She only needs the opportunity. And if you're constantly accessible, emotional, or reactive, you give it to her on a silver platter every single time. And the only way to break her psychological grip is through ruthless, disciplined detachment. Not just from her words or her presence, but from the emotional gravity she's created in your life, where every silent treatment, every exaggerated sigh, every fake apology or explosive accusation once pulled your heartstrings like a puppet. Now, you cut those strings one by one until she can yank, pull, twist, and rage all she wants, but you no longer move. Because detachment is not coldness, it's self-respect. And every moment you spend begging her to see your side is another moment you validate her delusion of control. But when you detach, you destroy the illusion she's built, that she is the center of your emotional universe. So stop needing her to acknowledge your pain. Stop waiting for her to admit her lies. Stop hoping she'll finally take responsibility, because that moment isn't coming, and your life cannot wait for her healing journey. You don't announce your detachment. You demonstrate it with your silence, your schedule, your spiritual composure. So when she throws a tantrum, because you didn't chase her down the hallway this time, when she gives you the silent treatment and you greet it with peace instead of panic, when she insults you and you simply look at her with the stillness of a man who's seen the fire before and knows exactly how to walk through it, she breaks. And that's how you torture her, not by screaming back or trying to get even, but by being the one who no longer needs to react. Because detachment with dignity is about knowing exactly who you are and refusing to shrink back into the shell of who she tried to mold you into. And she will bait you. She will try to cry, seduce, or guilt trip you with, I just miss the old you. But you're not the old you. You're the version of you that sees the game for what it is and has made peace with walking away, even when you still feel the sting of betrayal, because the pain you feel while detaching is nothing compared to the pain of staying stuck in a web where your love is turned against you. So detach with calm, with stillness, with purpose, and every day remind yourself that your silence is not weakness, it is warfare. Your peace is not passivity, it is power. And your refusal to play her emotional game is the final nail in the coffin of her control. So when she shows up months later, acting like nothing happened, testing your reaction, touching your arm, bringing up old memories, you smile, nod, and keep moving. Not because you're trying to get a reaction out of her, but because her presence has become irrelevant to your mission. And that is the kind of punishment that lasts longer than any argument ever could. Number 4, speak in calm certainty. You don't need to shout to dominate a room. You don't need to raise your voice to assert truth, because the most feared man in any situation is not the loudest. He's the one who speaks with calm, unshakable certainty. And when you've dealt with a narcissistic woman, you know that chaos is her native language, emotional intensity is her battlefield, and your uncontrolled reaction is the outcome she's waiting for. But when you enter the room with the stillness of someone who's no longer invested in pleasing or proving anything to her, when your words are precise, measured, and loaded with consequence, she senses the shift immediately. Her games no longer work, her manipulation no longer lands, and her voice no longer echoes inside your conscience, because you've returned to your center, and your voice is now the reflection of your clarity, not your confusion. So when she accuses you of being emotionally unavailable because you refuse to yell back, when she mocks your discipline and calls it cold, let her, because you're not speaking for her validation anymore, you're speaking for truth. And truth doesn't need to be loud to be felt. In fact, the quieter you speak, the more she has to listen. And that drives her insane because she thrives off conflict. She craves emotional chaos. And when you don't feed it, when you say things like, "I understand what you said, but that doesn't align with my values," or "You're free to feel that way, but I'm not participating in this conversation anymore," she spirals. Because calm certainty is the psychological equivalent of placing a mirror in front of her behavior. She can't deflect it, she can't manipulate it, and she definitely can't argue with it. So speak with purpose, and when she tries to corner you with guilt. So you don't care about me anymore. You don't rant or defend, you say, "I care about peace more than dysfunction." And you move on. You don't pause for her reaction. You don't soften the blow, because your voice is no longer an invitation for her to twist your truth. It is a boundary. And every time you speak calmly in the face of her rage, every time you hold your frame while she tries to bait you into explaining yourself, every time you keep your tone steady while she tries to unleash emotional storms, you chip away at the control she once had, because that tone of calm certainty doesn't just protect your peace, it tortures her insecurity, because she knows you're no longer afraid of walking away, and that terrifies her, more than your anger ever did, more than your apologies ever meant, because now your words are no longer reactions, they're decisions, and when you speak, she listens. Not because you're louder, but because you're no longer asking for her approval. You're simply informing her of your boundary, your belief, your limit, and that level of composure is something she cannot compete with. So keep your voice steady, keep your power internal, and remember, real strength doesn't shout, it whispers with confidence. And the more you live by this principle, the more you become a man whose presence cannot be shaken, whose tone cannot be disrupted, and whose truth cannot be denied. Number 5, don't react, redirect. She thrives in the arena of reaction, and the moment you respond emotionally, passionately, or impulsively, you've already handed her the blueprint to manipulate you again, because everything she says when you argue isn't designed for resolution. It's engineered to trigger, to bait, to get under your skin and make you defend yourself, explain yourself, prove something that doesn't even need proving. And if you step into that trap, you're playing on her turf where logic disappears. Facts are twisted, timelines are warped, and suddenly you're apologizing for things you never even did, which is exactly why you must master the art of redirection, where instead of reacting to her chaos, you return to your center, because every time she throws emotional fire at you, your job is to redirect that energy away from your emotional system and back into your mission, your values, your peace. If she yells, you don't match her tone. You step outside and go lift weights, write a plan, or finish a task that builds your future. If she insults you and tries to push your buttons with personal attacks, you don't defend your character. You respond with silence or a simple phrase like, "I hear you," then move on. And that's not avoidance, it's power. It's the Stoic discipline of guarding your inner world from invasion. Because she wants you to explode, she needs you to shout, to break, to show her that she still controls your emotional temperature. But the moment you stop reacting and start redirecting, she realizes she's shouting into a void. She's poking a stone wall, and that drives her mad because the narcissistic woman doesn't want peace. She wants chaos she can control, but when your focus becomes unshakable, when your purpose becomes stronger than your impulse to engage, she loses access to your emotional data, and without that, she can't calibrate her attacks. She starts grasping at straws, escalating into theatrics, pushing harder to trigger something, anything. But the more you redirect, the less power she has, because you've stopped playing the emotional ping-pong match, and instead, you've walked off the court entirely. And when she sees that she no longer gets to control when you're upset, when you speak or how you feel, her mask starts to slip. She becomes erratic, unpredictable, and eventually desperate, because you're no longer the predictable puppet who dances when she pulls strings. Now you're the man who responds to chaos with calm, to nonsense with purpose, to insult with indifference, and that is how you torture her. Not by retaliating, but by refusing to let her dictate the direction of your thoughts, your words, or your actions. You redirect everything toward growth, towards discipline, towards things that matter, and soon she's left arguing with herself, because a man who masters redirection doesn't just survive her tactics, he renders them obsolete. Number 6. Let her be right. You will never win an argument with a narcissistic woman, not because you're wrong, but because the rules are designed to shift the moment you gain ground. The target moves, the facts get rewritten, and suddenly you're back at square one trying to explain why something that never happened isn't true. Which is why one of the most savage, stoic, and psychologically devastating tactics you can use is to simply let her be right. And when she throws those ridiculous accusations like, "You're emotionally immature," or "You never really loved me," you stop trying to defend your integrity, your maturity, or your history. You stop citing receipts, you stop bringing up evidence, and you just say, "Okay," or "If that's how you see it," or even better, you smile, nod, and keep sipping your coffee, because every word you use to try and disprove her lie gives her energy, gives her time, gives her the stage, and she knows that, which is why she'll escalate when she sees that her usual jabs don't land anymore. She'll say things like, "So you're just going to ignore me now?" or "I guess I was right all along." And that's when you hit her with the most brutal tactic of all, complete indifference. You don't even flinch, because the truth is, her need to be right isn't about truth, it's about control. And when you let her win, you strip her of the emotional reward she's addicted to. You let her build her fake victory castle in her mind, and you don't even bother knocking it down, because you're not in her game anymore, and nothing terrifies her more than a man who no longer participates in the performance. You're done auditioning, done proving, done begging her to see you clearly, and that terrifies her because your silence is not confusion, it's clarity. It's the sound of a man who's seen through the illusion and walked away. And when she realizes that even her wildest accusations no longer trigger a defense, that her tantrums get met with peace, that her twisted logic is absorbed and passed over without emotional charge, she feels powerless. And that powerlessness is the torture, because in her world, being right is her identity, her validation, her weapon. And when that weapon no longer has effect, she panics. She starts questioning everything. She digs deeper, trying to provoke something, but it's too late. You've already emotionally left the conversation before she even started it, and that is the punishment, the consequence, the justice, because you didn't scream back, you didn't slam doors, you didn't expose her. You just stopped caring whether or not she understood, approved, or agreed, and that is the highest level of detachment a man can reach. That is Stoicism in its purest form, because a narcissistic woman wants to dominate your mind, not just your moments. And when you deny her that, you rob her of control at the root level. So let her be right, let her feel victorious, and walk away in silence. Because when you no longer fight her lies, you force her to live with them alone. Number 7. Elevate without her. You want to know what truly tortures a narcissistic woman. It's not your silence alone, not your detachment, not even your calm certainty. It's your evolution without her. It's when she realizes that all the control she once had over your mind, your time, your soul, no longer exists. And you didn't just walk away. You upgraded, you disappeared from her storm, and re-emerged as the man she secretly hoped you'd never become. Because your elevation is the final nail in the coffin of her ego, the proof that she was never your source of power, but your biggest distraction from it. And to elevate without her is not about revenge. It's about refusing to let her be the climax of your story. She was just a chapter, a lesson carved in betrayal and manipulation. And now your story becomes one of fire, focus, and transformation. Not for her, not to impress her, not even to prove her wrong, but because the only way to truly heal, to truly reclaim your manhood, is to outgrow every version of you that needed her validation. And that means you change your habits, you sharpen your discipline, you go to the gym not because you're angry, but because you're building a body she no longer has access to. You grind in silence because your name will be known in circles she can never reach. You invest your time into your craft, your business, your purpose until you become a man who's too busy building empires to answer petty texts. And when she sees you, not just existing without her, but thriving, glowing, upgrading, she will feel a void deeper than anything silence alone could ever create. Because now she can't reach you. Not emotionally, not physically, not energetically. You are no longer available to feed her need for relevance, and that's when she spirals. That's when she starts stalking your stories, questioning her worth, asking mutual friends about you because she cannot stand being replaced by peace. And yet that's what you gave yourself when you chose discipline over drama, purpose over pain, growth over games. And the truth is, she never expected you to get better. She expected you to fall apart, to chase, to beg, to collapse under the weight of her absence. But you didn't. You used the ashes of that toxic relationship as the foundation of your rebirth. And that's what tortures her. That her leaving didn't break you. It freed you. And now your confidence, your money, your peace, your energy are all yours again. No longer leaking into a black hole of emotional manipulation. You're upgrading everything. Your circle becomes sharper, your time becomes sacred, your mind becomes bulletproof, and you start dressing better, speaking clearer, standing taller, not as a performance, but as a byproduct of healing, because when you stop giving her power, you start remembering who you were before she distorted your reflection, and now that version of you, the grounded, focused, dangerous man, he's back, and he's not looking back. And this doesn't mean you fake it or pretend. It means you truly elevate. You do the hard work in private, and when she resurfaces, and she will, acting sweet, nostalgic, apologetic. You don't respond with ego. You respond with indifference, because your life no longer has room for people who celebrated your pain, who played with your emotions, who drained your power. You outgrew her on every level, emotionally, mentally, financially, spiritually. And when she scrolls through your life online or hears about your wins from others, she won't just miss you. She'll regret everything she ever said, did, or assumed about you. And that regret, that's the torture, because she'll never again be part of your peace, your bed, your empire. And deep down, she'll know she created the storm that forced you to become the man she never deserved. Your evolution is the consequence she never saw coming, and it's irreversible. Every move she made was to control your perception, your confidence, your decisions. But not anymore. You are no longer her emotional puppet. You've learned the power of being unfazed, the strength of silence, the discipline of walking away. You have reclaimed your soul. If you're ready to never be manipulated again, to become unshakable, to live by your own rules, then you've already won. Comment below, "I choose freedom," and let the world know you're untouchable now. If this message hit you in the gut, then this channel was made for you. Support this mission. Help get this truth to the millions of men drowning in silence, confused, broken, and gaslit daily. Share this, subscribe, leave a comment. Your support isn't just for the algorithm, it's for the man who needs to hear this and doesn't even know it yet.